So, making no notes whatsoever at this point, I want to talk about the BBFC because they've been on my mind a bit, and it's fair to say they're not as bad as they used to be when it was really draconian in the late 80s and early 90s, or actually all through the 90s, to be fair, because just about everything. It was 2000 when everything changed. But as we know, they still cut things. Now we can still blame the BBFC in general. For this, they have their own guidelines, but they're claiming those guidelines are based on laws. Now, naturally, you have things like the stick of 12 to a 15. They do say that this would have been a fifth. There are people who wanted a 12A, and they say, we'll have to make this a 15. You have to cut this to get a 12A. That's one thing, though, because that's not too much essentially, because they could have just gone for the 15. It would have been fine. It's when you get to the outright 18s, and surprisingly, you'd think that the censorship would be a lot stricter at the younger ages groups, but no, it's actually stricter at the 18 plus. And they say anyone over 18 can watch what they want, except things of sexual violence and blah 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 blah. Well, this still does annoy me. I get annoyed at the censorship. It is a film. People know it's a film, and they're always saying how people could be influenced to do this and that. Well, I'm sorry, but you can't demand someone change a film just for the 0.00001% who are going to be madmen. And I think it's ridiculous. But I'd also like to highlight in the case of a film called The New York Ripper, there are scenes that are cut from that because of sexual violence. There's scenes of cutting of I was reading scenes of cutting of the chest and cutting of the breasts. And, well, hang on, I've already seen that. And by what I mean, I was watching this earlier. It's one of my new favourite documentaries now. It's Video Nasty 2. This particular one is talking about the years between 1985 and 1999 when the censorship was really draconian. And recently, The New York Ripper was finally released in the UK. It's not banned anymore. It was released by Shameless Screen Entertainment, and they were clearly told, I'm going to move it here, that they had to make some cuts to it. Well, Shameless Screen Entertainment, I think you should resubmit your work of The New York Ripper to the BBFC, because those scenes, like I said, were in this documentary. And I think, please, someone, if anyone's looking at this video, please send this video to Shameless Screens, because I'm too lazy to do it myself. Please tell them that. Please have them resubmit the film. Tell the BBFC you used it. You allowed a documentary who was also rated by the BBFC to use this content. Why can't we use this content? And this is something I'd like to get to. The thing with the Video Recordings Act was that it pretty much made it so that you couldn't have a jury anymore. One of the most notable cases of when it was all still tried by jury and everything was a film called The Evil Dead. And that was by Palace Videos, and they actually fought to still be allowed to show their film, to still show it. It shouldn't be under the Obscene Publications Act, and they won. And the film is still available now, uncut. And this gets the thing I want to get to. BBFC will say that when it gets to Certificate 18, they've got to comply with the law. Well, here's something I'd like to say to the whole film industry. Why aren't you challenging the laws? I want to see the courts brought back in. I want films to be judged in the court. The most common thing is this goes by is, or the BBFC uses the Obscene Publications Act. And the thing about that is, that about the Obscene Publications Act, why it doesn't really make any sense anymore, is that it bans content, it bans a film or a book, or it bans content that may deprave or corrupt those who view it. The thing is, and the idea is a reasonable person must judge whether it could deprave or corrupt, but the reality is, if anything, a reasonable person could not judge that, because by viewing the content, they themselves could already be depraved or corrupt, so they can't make a fair judgment. And that's why the Obscene Publications Act doesn't make any sense. And this is the thing. I think we don't have as many cuts as we used to, but cuts still happen. And right now, all that happens is you go to BBFC, and if they make a decision you don't like, you can send it for an appeal to the BBFC board, but you don't get the courts. Well, here's where I think the media industry should challenge them, and they can challenge. They can challenge the laws themselves. Like I said, Shameless Screens Entertainment, they're a small company, but I can't see why even the bigger distributors can't foot the bill for this. We all want the same thing. I mean, there's always this misunderstanding that the film industry works together, that all these industries work together. No, all these industries, people in film industry, they're all competitors. But I think they all agree that censorship is bad. I mean, films like I Spit on Your Grave, it's not a film I particularly want to see. I don't like horror films at all. Well, it's not really a horror, is it? But there are scenes I've checked the remake of it, the things that were cut for the remake. That is the most ridiculous thing to cut under sexual. They're saying they have to edit it so you can't see the woman's arse or all that, and the cuts are made due to sexual violence. The concept of this film is a woman has been violently raped, and then she spends the whole rest of the film murdering her rapists. I think you can be explicitly violent as you want, because the whole point of that film is you're not going to get away with it. And that is brilliant. That is a great message to send, no matter how sick and depraved the imagery can be. You can't get away with doing this in real life. That's the message it will send. And that's something that I think really should have got across. And I think should still get across. I want to see the film industry take on the BBFC, or rather take them on at the things they claim to be following, the laws. Challenge the laws, and we can get uncut films. I want to see more uncut films. Of course, there are things I'm not going to like. Like I said, I don't like horror films. They're not for me. But I don't want to stop people seeing. I don't like censorship. I can see some, and there's certain Italian films like Cannibal Holocaust. I think there's some genuine animal cruelty in that. I admit I don't know where I stand on that. I'm wishy-washy over that. I certainly think that in situations like that, there's certain ethical issues of making it, and there should be that. But even then, that's more. I mean, you'd never get away with that by shooting something like that in Britain. But then you got Italy, it probably has different rules about what you can shoot, and certain issues of what they cut might equally be due to cultural differences. But like I said, it's all about would a reasonable jury, I mean, the BBFC, they claim, well, we do this research, but when they go for people, they're clearly going for people that they are going to give them the things they want to say. And subsequently, when people don't give them what they want to say, they kind of bully them into making them say the things they want to say. So that's not really helpful. And that's because there's no court procedure. There should be. But with films like The Human Centipede 2, it was banned, it was eventually just given heavy cuts. Or The Bunny Game, which was banned, or a Japanese film called Grotesque. It was banned due to its sexual violence, or mostly just because it was gratuitously violent and there was no real plot to it. And I think it's a splatterfest. It doesn't matter. I would like to see distributors with the backing of bigger distributors, the financial backing of bigger distributors. I want to see these things challenged in court. I think they need to be challenged. We need bigger films. The sad thing is my video here isn't going to make a blind bit of difference, but if anyone likes it, please send it to the distributors. Tell them to challenge the laws. Actually have some balls and challenge the BBFC. If they make a decision and you don't agree with the decision, see them in court. That needs to take place again. We need the courts back. Because would a reasonable person... I mean, so many people may not like the scenes in those films, but would a reasonable person believe that these films, that any film, can honestly... Any theatrical film made by, well, not necessarily Hollywood, but you know what I mean? Would anyone believe that a real film, would the shot of deprave or corrupt, would the shot of an erect penis, which they deprave or corrupt, would the shot of blood on breasts deprave or corrupt? I would answer for the 0.00001%, yes. For the 9.99999%, no. I don't believe it would. And I think it's unfair that they're not, the BBFC aren't, well, they claim they're not regulating taste as such anymore, but they are enforcing it in certain ways. And I don't like that. And I do believe they should be held accountable and they should be challenged in court. Please, if anyone's watching this, send this video to the big distributors in the UK and Shameless Films Entertainment. Please resubmit the New York Ripper to the BBFC and tell them that the scenes that that the BBFC demanded you cut, they are in this film. Tell them if they can use it, why can't we?